Hello, hopefully if you're watching this video you've watched part 1. We're going to carry on in this video and add an API gateway and SQSQ in front of our lambda, which sends a text message. So let me just quickly recap what we done in the last video. So we set up our project, we wrote this lambda in TypeScript, which takes an SQS event and sends a text message to a phone number with message, and then we terraformed it up so we have a lambda, and then it write IAM permission so that the lambda can publish a message to SNS, not SQS. So if we test this out, I should warn you as well that this costs 4 cents I think per text at the moment in the UK, so just be warned that your AWS account will have a little bill attached if you're following along. Not much, but a little bit. So you can see there I've got another text saying hello from lambda. Okay, so the next thing is going to be more terraform, but we're going to add a few extra files in here. So we want we'll work backwards, so let's start with a sqs.terraform and we'll create our SQSQ. So this is a very simple file. All we're going to have is AWS SQSQ. It's going to be send text Q, and then the name is just going to be send text. Okay, and now on our lambda we want to create an event source so that when something's put onto this queue it triggers a lambda. So that in AWS is called an event source mapping. Sorry if you can hear my hamster drinking his water. And then we've got event source ARN, which is going to be the ARN of the SQSQ, and send text queue, we created that a second ago, .arn, and then we need to give it the function name as well, which is our AWS lambda function SMS sender .arn. Oops, there we go. We'll just run format on that, tidy it up a bit. Okay, I think that's everything we need. We probably need some permissions. Actually no, we added those in the last video, so if we do terraform apply now, we should be able to go to the SQS console inside AWS, and once that queue is created, takes a little while to create, but once that's created we should see it pop up here, and then we're just going to test it by manually putting a message on the queue. So it's created the queue apparently. Oh yeah, there it is, it was there before, and now it's creating the event source mapping on the lambda. So once the event source mapping is on the lambda, it'll be visible in the console here, send text. So this queue is triggering the lambda. I'll show you how that works. So we send and receive a message. In here we can just give it the data structure that we expect. And then we need a message, and this time we're going to say hello from SQS. So before we said hello from lambda, now hello from SQS. That has sent, it should trigger the lambda, and then we should get a text. And there you see I've got another text from the same number saying hello from, let me see if I can make that a bit bigger for you. hello from SQS. Sorry if that's mirrored, but There you go. Right, so the next thing we want to do is have an API gateway in front of this SQS so we can go back to our terraform and have a API gateway .tf. This is a little bit complicated compared to the other resources. I'm going to do a bit of copy and pasting here. You can find the source code and then copy and paste as well if you like. So the first thing we have is our API gateway REST API. It's got a name, description, nothing too confusing there. And then we're going to have a resource, which is basically an endpoint on the API, which we have send text. A few other things. We're going to have this validator, so this is going to validate some of the request parameters on our REST API, and then a method. So this is a post method on our endpoint, no authorization, request parameters, we don't have a proxy, and then request validator ID is giving it this validator. Okay. The next thing, I think we can actually get away without this validator. I'm just gonna, I think, add that for some testing. It doesn't look like we're actually running any validation though. We'll maybe cover that in another video. Okay, so to attach the API gateway to SQS, we need something called a API gateway integration. So I'll copy and paste this in and try my best to explain it. So we've got, it's attached to our REST API resource and then the HTTP method. Type is AWS, it's just an AWS integration. The credentials, will create this in a second, but it's the role with which it sends it on to SQS. We need to give it the right permissions to send a message to SQS. And then the URI, which is just the URI of the SQS queue. Request parameters, so that's just the content type. And then request template, so this is where we tell it to pass on the input.body, which is the body. So you could have this set up so it does some mapping with query parameters or something complicated like that, but we're just simply going to pass the body onto SQS as a string. And this depends on the role being created beforehand. Okay, the next thing is a response. So the API, we need to map the responses. So we're simply going to, so there's a couple of resources for this. There's a method response and an integration response. So this basically just passes back 200 if the if SQS gives us 200. So otherwise it's not going to give a response, or it's going to just give us some failure response. And then the last thing we need is deployment. So stage name is var.environment, we'll create that in a second, and it just depends on the API being created. Okay, so a few things I said we'll create in a second. One is the variable and one is the role. So first up, let's create a variables.tf file. There's not too much that we need to put in here. I think it's literally just environment. And then the next thing is in our IAM file. So we want to create an AWS IAM role called API to SQS. And we're giving it the STS assume role, so you can assume this role. Now the data block, which has the permissions, is this, and you'll find this in the source code, but it's basically for some login and then SQS, so it's allowing the API gateway to send to an SQS queue. Like before, we need to create a policy using that data block, and then we need to attach that to the role. Okay, and that should be everything. So I'm going to try terraform deploy. Not 100% convinced it'll work. Sorry, terraform apply. But yes, we get some error, var.region. So it looks like I've used another variable I forgot to define, var.region. So we could probably hard code that as EU West 1 because that's what we're using, but so that it's a bit easier to change if you want to change the region you're deploying this to, we can just write a variable call it region, and we'll give that a default of EU West 1, so it can be overwritten if you want. Okay, and then try terraform apply this time, hopefully it'll work. Okay, the API gateway will take a while to create. Oh no, it's done it pretty quickly. So let's have a look in the Aws console. API gateway. So this is a pretty easy way to build a serverless API. You just have some lambdas underneath and API gateway on top. The reason for the SQS queue, you might be wondering why we can't just hit the lambdas directly. So the SQS queue gives us a bit more flexibility in terms of scaling. So if there's suddenly a huge amount of requests to the API gateway, they will queue up on the SQS queue and allow lambda to scale up in time. It also gives us some added benefits of things like dead letter queues, where if a message fails on the lambda, we can send it onto a dead letter queue and then redrive, which is where we put the dead letter queue back into the lambda after fixing some bug maybe. So it just gives us a few things like that, and it's not too hard to put together, you saw there. Okay, so we've got our method. I think we might need to deploy this API to the development stage to get a URL. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try and hit the API from Postman, which I've got open here. So this was from before, but this is our new, so you can just copy and paste your URL in there, and then the endpoint we want to hit is, I think it's send-text, yeah. And make sure you're sending a post request, because that's the only method we've defined. You can define other ones if you want, but we've defined a post. Okay, this time we're going to try and send a message saying hello from Postman. Okay, we've got back a response. This is just the standard SQS response, and it looks like it has worked. Let me just show you. So you can see we've got another text from the same thing saying hello from Postman this time. So well done if you've followed all through this video. We managed to get API gateway linked up to an SQS queue and then linked up to a lambda, sending a text through SMS. So we've used 4 different AWS services there, all serverless, all pretty nice and scalable. So if you find this useful, please like and subscribe. It really supports the channel, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.